Alright, thanks for joining me on another episode of Rubicon Unlimited. We're gonna go over a really cool mod today, super unnecessary, but still cool. We're gonna swap out our key for something a little cooler. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Rubicon Unlimited. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and checking out this new key. I have to give a big shout out to Stabes JKU because believe it or not, I won this on Instagram. He was doing a giveaway and I won it, so that's great. If you want to pick up a key of your own, check out AJT Designs. Let's see what kind of color combo you come up with. So I'm going to show you guys how to assemble this thing. We're going to have to cannibalize our old one, and trust me, it's not that big of a deal. And at the end of the video, I'll give you my thoughts. Is this thing worth picking up? I mean, it's pretty cheap, but do I like the old one better? Alright, this is what AJT Design sends you. We got a nice sealed bag. Inside, we've got our key. And this is 2 pieces. We've got a set of screws and an Allen key, which will be handy. We've also got a set of buttons, and I opted for black to go with my anvil key. And if you get real creative, you can actually order multiple colors if you really wanted to. And I went with a secondary set of red, and you'll see why when we get installing this. Oh, and lastly, of course, you get a little sticker and a business card and a thank you. Cool. All right, so let's get started on replacing this tired, old, worn out key fob with our AJT Designs kit. It's going to be a pretty sweet upgrade as far as keys go, and it's going to be pretty simple. So let's dive right in. I'm going to use a penny to get started. These things are obsolete and just as dated as this key fob, so I think this will work well. Alright, so we got the old key. We've got our first tool, just a coin. Flathead screwdriver would work too. And we're going to focus on this little tab at the front of the key. We're just going to shove the coin in there and pry. Key comes apart pretty easily. Inside we got all the internals. And we can start on either side. I'm going to choose this one. So let's pull it apart. So we've got the outer bezel that holds the key. We've got the rubber piece. Might be worth noting that I have the auto start, so I can actually start my Jeep from the key. Some of you might have that, some of you might not. Either way, we'll run through the instructions and we'll get you sorted out. Here is our delicate circuit board. Let's not mess with that too much. And our second half here houses the battery. So we're going to pop that out. Now we've got to take this thing apart. Okay, so to get this metal piece out, we have to be real careful because this metal is actually pretty flimsy and we don't want to bend it too much. So I've gone and grabbed our second tool, which is just going to be a razor, and I'm just going to score along that plastic until we get through it. And we're going to do that for both. There we go. Now I'm hoping this will just come right out. There we go. Okay, so here we have all the pieces that are going to transfer over to our awesome new key, except there's one little problem. This guy is stuck together, and it's pretty sturdy. We're gonna have to find a way to break out the metal piece and get rid of all this plastic. Here you go, Scarlett. Good girl, Scarlett. Good girl. Alright, if you're more of a cat person and don't really have a dog to chew on this thing, you can just use a razor blade. And we're going to start off by running the blade along this inner edge. Be careful, these things are super sharp. I don't want it to be like your mom, but don't cut yourself. Repetition works best here when cutting plastic, so just go over it as many times as you can, and it'll get easier as you go. Okay, so we've done a bunch of cutting with the blade. I'm just gonna just pry on this thing. See if I can bend it. There we go. All right, that's what it looks like. We've successfully cannibalized our old key. All right, so now we can start up with assembling our new key. So this is the top face, and we're gonna go ahead and drop our buttons in. So I'm gonna grab my first pack. Inside the pack, we've got all these guys. So these two will act as our main buttons. We've got start ×2, and we've got a filler. That's if you don't have that feature in your key and you just want a blank, filler plate. That's what this one will do. And then a smaller panic button. This weird shaped piece we'll touch on later when we drop the key in. Okay, so now we can take our buttons and start dropping them in. They really only go one way. They are keyed. So you can see this shape here matches up with this shape. We'll go ahead and do the one next to it. Just drop that in. Start ×2, or your filler plate up at the top. And I'm actually not going to install this panic button. That's why I got these. So because I have the Rubicon, it's got those red accents, I thought, why not have a red panic button? It would look alright. So that guy will go right on the bottom. Great, so we have the buttons where we want them. Now we can take this rubber piece from our old key and drop it in on top. And then next we can drop in our circuit board. It fits in there quite nicely. And that's about it for this piece for now. Let's move on to the other half. Okay, so now we got this metal piece that we pulled out of our old key. It's got to sit in here. It's going to sit just like this. Okay, so once you get that metal piece in place, we're going to go ahead and reuse our battery because we like recycling. And it says positive side down. Positive side is this flat side with a positive on it. So we'll put that down. It'll sit just like that. That's all we got to do with this back side. So let's get back to this guy. Sorry, I was flip-flopping there. And we can install our key. Now, there's an interesting feature here. We can install the key, or we can be weird and install this interesting filler piece. And it would sit right there, but I mean, you're giving up the ability to start your Jeep. I don't know how you would start it and drive. It would look cool without the metal key piece, but really not functioning. So I'm gonna go ahead and drive my Jeep and install the key the way it should be. So they recommend that you put, there's like a sharper edge and there's a rounder edge. They're saying sharp down. So we'll place that there in its perch. It sits pretty nice. And then we're gonna mate these two. So we're just gonna sandwich it together, and I'm probably gonna mess this up, but let's give it a shot. Okay, things feel right. Okay, now for our final step, we're gonna reveal the final bag. And the good guys at AJT Designs, just like the rest of the components, the screws are customizable. So you can get these in red, you can get them in blue, I mean raw. I decided to go with black. So we'll just drop those in. Cool. And let's fasten them down. Bear in mind, we're screwing into plastic here, so don't go crazy. Because if you strip the plastic, you're gonna have to buy a new one. Cool, we got 4 screws. Just gonna make sure the housing is fully closed along the seam. That should be snug enough. And there it is, all assembled and ready to go. I think this thing matches this Jeep way better. You can match the hardware, plastic, buttons to match your Jeep. I opted for the Anvil version because my Jeep is Anvil. So for us Anvil fans, I have to say this color match is not quite accurate. I think this key could use a little bit more of a blue tint to it. It's more or less a light gray as opposed to an Anvil, but I imagine it's super hard to get like these detailed colors perfect, but I figured it's worth noting. So on top of the key color, we can also customize our buttons. There are a bunch of options there, and when ordering this thing, I made sure to order a secondary color, and that's how I was able to get the red panic button. And I really thought that looked cool with the Rubicon graphics. Lastly, we have the option for different colored hardware. So these 4 screws that we have around the edge, you can change those up too. On the back of the key, I really like that you can kind of see the screws. And if I picked, say, like a blue color or a red, you would really see that through on the back, which is pretty sweet detail. The key itself is pretty sturdy. When I first got this thing, I was a little worried that the metal key end would become loose or, you know, maybe break over time, but no, that's not going to be a problem here. This key is strong, just like our factory one. The size of it, well, the size, you have to imagine this thing encases the electronics of the old key, and it adds a bit of styling, but it's a little bulkier. In the hand, I mean, over time you're going to get used to it, it's no big deal, but at first, you know, it's a little thicker, no big deal. One thing that's really going to take time to get used to are the buttons themselves. Keep in mind, the whole thing is a hard injected plastic. That includes the buttons. So if you look at your old key right now, you'll notice that the buttons are soft, they're like a rubber. You lose that tactile feel with this key. Everything is the same kind of hard plastic, and if you're reaching down to your keys to just unlock it, you might have a harder time finding the buttons. Now that being said, it's not difficult, it's not like the worst thing ever, but it's worth noting that you won't have that rubber feel to find your buttons. Again, over time, probably get used to it, no big deal. Now with all that being said, would I recommend this key? And of course, I mean, customizing our Jeeps to the nth degree. This is just another aspect. I mean, it's fun, completely unnecessary, but we like that kind of stuff, right? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Rubicon Unlimited. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. You can follow me on Instagram at Rubicon Unlimited. We'll see you guys in the next one.